their emotions and their thoughts is couched in shame or confusion or guilt. And then hopefully over the course of time, those emotions will build to more and more nuance and will add a little bit more dimension to our thoughts and maybe feel a little bit more empowered to talk about our mental health journeys. So in this vein, I'm curious, how has the way in which you've talked about your mental health, both internally in your own minds and maybe externally with other folks, changed throughout the course of your mental health journey?
I can answer that one. Before I really understood what mental health meant, I always knew that I felt different than other people, and I didn't understand the feelings that I was having, and so it was just easy to chalk up and go, oh, I'm just crazy. And I didn't realize that that was negatively affecting me, and so I was like, oh, I'm crazy, and then I have ADHD, which is basically a learning disability, and so I'm stupid. And it really took a long time for me to once I did that, I was allowing other people to speak to me that way. And so then it becomes my truth. And that's not the truth of what is going on with someone who has something going on in the mental health capacity. So I feel like the language in general has always been there. We just now have like more access to it. And I feel that it's been so misguided even from day one, because in order to understand how we need to speak to each other, we have to understand each other. And until we are willing to not have fear against the unknown, and we are able to just really have these conversations, because, I can say, oh, I have ADHD or I have trauma, I can tell right away how that person feels about me. Like if they're even gonna do business with me, they'll be like, oh, we don't know what we're gonna get with her, And so partly of what we want to do at Wondermind is really kind of change that narrative and really encourage people that don't have access to resources and to democratize it and destigmatize it so that we can all just flourish into our best, because I've always spoken negative with myself, and I had to learn the rule. It's like if I wouldn't say it to my best friend, I'm not allowed to say it to myself. Preach.
Let me say, to that point, I think that's particularly important, that the language that we use with one another is extremely important, right? That's important, how we convey what we're thinking and feeling. But the language that we use within ourselves is even more important. The conversations that I have with myself, the negative patterns that start to occur. One thing that we must know about negative and positive patterns are easy to just fall into. You don't have to really do any work to fall into negative thinking, and then one negative thought leads to another, and now we're deeply down this rabbit hole. Positive thinking you have to make a move towards that. You have to really move yourself into that positive thinking. So I think one of the things that we must get better at is giving grace to ourselves. Right, we're pretty good as human beings of giving grace to someone else. If Solomon does something, I don't know him real well, I'll say, nah, it's all right, boy, don't worry about it. That's grace. I won't give that same grace to myself. I won't, I'll beat myself up. If you took a transcript of the way I talk to myself and handed it to somebody and they read it back to me, I'm ready to fight. Because I can be so negative about myself, with myself, right? So if I say it to people all the time, players that I work with, the world oftentimes will line up against us. I'm not gonna stand in that line with you though. I'm for me. I'm going to be for me, and I'm gonna move in that way. So giving that grace to ourselves, I think is critically important.
Yeah, I think the way that I've changed the language I use with mental health has changed dramatically over the years, whether it's learning from other mental health advocates or from professionals. First, I like to change the way that we talk about suicide. Like, a lot of people say committed suicide. I think it's important to reverse it to they die by suicide. Because someone doesn't commit cancer, they don't commit ALS, and we need to treat mental health and suicide, depression, PTSD, bipolar disorder with the same respect as every other disease out there. And then on the personal level, I had to change my self-talk within myself and how I spoke to myself. Like, I'm an athlete, and I got to where I got to by being hard on myself. By always telling myself, you're not good enough, you need to do more is good, and just, that was a way that I kind of ruminated in my head. But when I got to the NFL, I kept trying to do that, and I was deteriorating myself. I destroyed my confidence, and it was gone. So I had to learn how to talk to myself differently through mental health coaches, through sports psychologists, just trying to teach me how to talk to myself again, whether that's in terms of saying I will, I can, I am the best, I am confident, I am strong. Like during games now, like after a series, I'll go to the sideline, I'll listen to my coach, then I'm pacing the sideline back and forth, just talking to myself, saying affirmations. I'm saying, I believe myself, I will have my best game, I am confident, I am the best. Just because I've been playing football almost 18 years now, and in 16 of those years, I would talk to myself terribly, so I can't give a chance for those thoughts to creep in. And then the last way I'd say I've really changed my mental health language is really through listening. Because when someone opens up and talks to us, we always feel like we have to fix them, we have to have the perfect thing to say, and really, I think that language is huge, just to tell someone, hey, I'm here for you, I'm a safe place, and I'll listen. And even while we're listening, I learned this at a conference where I was speaking at during the season, and one of the professionals say, a lot of the time when we're listening to people, we say, hey, I understand your pain, hey, I feel your pain. And he was telling us, that's not possible at all, because you never know what that person is actually going through inside their head, you don't know how they're taking it, you don't know how they're handling their emotions. So he said, instead say, hey, I can't imagine how you're feeling. And in doing this, I was able to see people in their eyes, to see how much more validated they feel and just how more important they feel. But yeah, these are the ways I changed my mental health, and I think it's just important to incorporate it into sentences, into just in the conversation, just letting people know, hey, in the locker room, hey, I'm going through therapy. I was talking to my therapist last night, just to make these conversations more normal. Or when someone asks me how I'm doing, being honest with them, hey, I'm good, but I'm also a little anxious. I've got the speaking event coming up. There's 1,700 people in here, so I'm a little nervous. But just making sure people understand that, hey, these are all normal things to talk about, and the more we can make it normal conversation, the more people can be vulnerable vulnerable, and we can open up these small safe places that might save somebody's life. You never really know.
Selena, I'm curious about you. With coming out with the documentary, did that change at all the way that you spoke about mental health and the way that you thought about the language that you used yourself and some of the self-criticism?
Yeah, we shot the documentary 6 years, and it makes me sick to hear the things that I was saying about myself in the beginning. It bums me out because but I think everybody can relate to that feeling. You know, I think, like everyone was sharing, it's important to speak to yourself with kindness, but I don't think I really understood that. It's funny because all the things I was bitching about then, I'm grateful for now, so it's really ironic, but I think it has taught me a lot about myself and it's weird being able to see myself so long ago saying those things that I would never say to myself now. So, weird.
Yeah, and that perspective too is really fascinating, to be able to look back and for all of us to see how the way that we think about ourselves and our experiences changes, and maybe we're grateful for things now that we weren't back then, and sometimes that can be pretty cool. Yeah. That's awesome. In terms of thinking about these moments where you decided to either open up or share a story or create a foundation, for some people, maybe it was a moment in time. Sometimes it was maybe a little bit of accumulation of experiences. I'm curious for each one of you, was there that sort of aha moment, or was it a slow build in terms of when you decided you wanted to start to be a little bit more authentic with your experiences and open up to the world about your mental health?
Yeah, my moment actually came at the beginning of season 2 on 13 Reasons Why. I was crumbling. Everything was like catching up to me. I had spent all these years investing my energy in avoiding what my problems were by helping other people and like giving all myself away. And I ran out of fuel. And then I said, you know what? You have to practice what you preach. And I called one person and I got on a plane and I went to a treatment center and I stayed there for 30 days. And it was the first time that I had ever had to sit in what and who I was. And it was very scary. It was lovely because you had no cell phone. But like, it was like, you know, you go and you like spin this like weird relationship with yourself, and you can see how disconnected you are. And you're like, I even started trying to navigate, I can help her. And I was like, no, like you have to focus on yourself. And so for me, that was the day. I was having seizures. I was like sad. I was crying every day. I was just like not happy. And I don't know that I would have made it had I not gone. And I was fortunate enough to go and have the resources for that. And when I was there, some people didn't have the resources and they were being asked to leave. And that was like a big marker for me of going, shit, that's wrong. Like, can I give them my insurance? How can I help them? How can I keep them? Like, they're like talking about suicide. Like, how are you going to let them leave? And it was, it struck a chord into me. It's like, we need to really take the time to understand who the world is and run like Wondermind looks like from the outside in. So Wondermind is all of you. And you tell us what you need, and we navigate that and find that and help find the resources so they can get they can get what they need.
I absolutely love that. One of the things that Mandy just touched on is something, again, that I think is really important. And this is the idea of giving yourself the opportunity to be in the mirror of your life. Oftentimes, we avoid the mirror. Why? Well, the mirror knows all. The only person that knows all of Corey is Corey. I know every single story about me. There's no one else in the world that does. My mom has a lot of the stories. My wife has a number of stories, but I'm the only one that holds every story. So that, I think, makes us nervous to sit with ourselves, because there's things that I don't want to think about that I've done in my life, or right thoughts that I don't want to have. So how do you find that ability to stay with yourself and be graceful to yourself on a consistent basis? Not just once or twice, but consistently. How can we do that? We have to build that with intention. That takes intentionality. That's that moving to positive thinking, even when I look at the flawed version of myself in the mirror. I'm still positive. I still love that person. And I think we've got work to do on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that spark was really hard for me to find because I didn't really want to be in this world. I didn't think I would ever kind of be up here. Like I felt a lot of shame around the way I was feeling. Like I feel like I shouldn't be feeling like this. Like to a point where like I was in that bad self-talk, calling myself crazy, saying I shouldn't be feeling like this, and didn't know how to process it. Like on top of that, like I was a third pick in the draft, and I felt like if I talked about the wrong things going on in my life, people would be telling me that I'm making excuses for not playing the right way or not playing good enough. And then even more, like on paper, like if you look at my life when I was struggling, like my life on paper looked perfect. Like I was a third pick in the draft, just got all this money, living the dream that I've always wanted to live, playing in the NFL. But deep down inside, like I was dying. And so my mom was encouraging me to speak, and I was just like, hey, like I'm not ready, mom. Like just give me some time. Like trying to get me to go to therapy, and I wouldn't do it. A couple opportunities would keep coming, and I would keep saying no. But finally, I said yes to opportunity. It was an article on ESPN with Molly Knight, and I remember like I told Molly, I said, hey Molly, I'm not comfortable talking about my emotions, what I'm going through, but I'm comfortable talking about my sister. And so I talked about Ella, I talked about the pain she went through, the struggle she went through, the light she was in this world, and just the absence of her not being here and how much the world is missing out of her. In the morning the article came out, I came to work early, and Molly had texted me, she said, hey Sally, like, I encourage you to read the article and read the comments and reviews. And I told Molly, like, I told her I would, but in my head I thought I wasn't going to. I thought I was gonna pass through and keep living my life. But I parked my car that morning and I read the article, and I read the reviews, I read the comments, and just uncontrollable tears went down my face. Reading the article about my sister, but then seeing the comments, like people saying, hey, thank you for sharing your sister's story. I finally feel seen. I'm like, hey, thank you for sharing your sister's pain. Like, it really helped me through the day. And the ones that really got me were like, hey, thank you for sharing your sister's story. Like, this saved my life. And that's really when like the spark hit me. Because like it was the first time in my life I felt seen. I felt like really heard. I didn't feel crazy for the way I felt. Like I felt like, okay, like, I'm not wild for like being depressed or anxious right now. Like, this is all normal. But the spark really grew me because I finally realized how many people in this world are struggling. How many people are suffering in silence and not talking about their mental health. How many people like just are just out there like not being able to feel like they can be human and be vulnerable. So that's really what set the spark off in me and made me want to do this work and made me want to become a mental health advocate and have me do the work to go to therapy and build the strength to be able to talk about these things and to, have the emotional capacity to be here and to do these things. But, I'm very thankful to be here. I'm very thankful to, have gone through that journey and to find that spark because it's changed the way I live, the way I connect with people, the way I see the world. And yeah, I just don't want that to stop.
I just want to take a moment to pay tribute to Ella and to everybody else whose life was lost to mental health struggles. This panel is for all of you, but the way that I see it is it's also for them. They struggled, they're not here with us, and whatever we can do to protect ourselves and then help their legacy, we're happy to do.
Thank you.
How about you, Selena? Was there a moment where you decided you wanted to talk about your mental health?
My moment. To be honest, I work in the weirdest industry. I just felt like I didn't fit in, and my mom, though, I have to be honest, was very vocal and open about how I was feeling, how she was feeling, and I think we watched Girl Interrupted when I was like 12, and I was like, oh, that's what rehab looks like, and I was like confused by it, and then we ended up having one of the most honest conversations that we've ever had together, and I really appreciated it, and it allowed me to not be scared. But I will say this, you can't force someone to do it. It's just not, it doesn't work. There was a lot of people that cared about me more than I cared about myself that really wanted me to do things I wasn't ready for. I had to hit my rock bottom, and I had to do it at my time, and it took a couple of tries, but I'd like to think and hope that I'm in a much better place now.
That's amazing. And I think what you just touched on, Selena, and what Solomon touched on a moment ago is that sometimes there is a right time, right? Sometimes you need to find that place in a natural, organic way to arrive at this place where you're ready to talk about the tough stuff and to be vulnerable and to do the work, especially therapy in particular. For anyone who's done it, therapy's work. Yeah. Powerful, meaningful, transformative work, but work nonetheless. Yeah. And Dr. Yeager, I'm curious, is this something that you experience with the clients that you work with, that they need to arrive at this place at some space and time where they're ready to do that work?
Yeah, oftentimes I talk to, especially the young men that I work with, about this perception of being a man, right? And there's so many different perceptions about what it should look and feel like, and more often than not, they're really negative, right? And pushing down patterns and thoughts all the time. And so one of the things that I'll talk briefly about is the two things that we hear more often than not about in the psychological realm is anxiety and depression. And we use these terms continuously. But oftentimes we don't really understand deeply what that means. And I'm a narrative therapist, so I want to tell stories and listen to stories from my clients all the time. And from those stories, processes will evolve, and they'll emerge, and I'll spit that pattern back to the person I'm working with. But those negative thoughts that come up all the time, all too often become the pattern of our life. We think about these negative things, and then our life oftentimes falls in that way. So I'm telling the young people that I'm working with that we can be positive about things just as we can be negative, but we've got to work to do it. So it's interesting. It runs a gamut of therapeutic pieces. Depression is oftentimes when you ruminate about things that have happened in your past. Ruminating, almost to a point of being paralyzed by that rumination. Anxiety is ruminating about what may happen in the future. But let us all be clear. The only real moment that we have is right now, where we're at right now. That's the only real thing. Everything else is made up. Even the story that I have from 20 years ago, I embellish. It changes. That's in the past. What may happen in the future, I ruminate, there's good research. It says about 85% of the things that we get nervous about never happen. But I've already used the energy. I've already used the energy to ruminate about it. Now that energy's gone. So recognizing that this current moment is the most important and only real thing that we have, what I do in this moment will be okay. I'm batting 1,000 in my life on making it through my struggles. I'm here. So I'm batting 1,000. I haven't missed yet. That doesn't mean it was easy, but I'm here. So if I can admit to that and understand that, I'll make it for whatever that next struggle is.
I love that. The ruminating piece is so true. We waste so much energy on this. And I think it's probably one of the most human experiences that exists. And it's just so powerful. And I think to be able to stop what you're doing and to observe yourself and your experience and what's happening in your mind and to take a pause and say, is this actually going to serve me well, is really powerful. An analogy I use in therapy a lot is the highway analogy. You're driving down a highway, and maybe there's an appropriate amount of anxiety that's helpful for you. Maybe it gets you to study for the test or to prepare for your interview or to do whatever it might be. But once you realize that you're going too far, take the exit. Get off the highway and say, I don't really need to be here anymore. Let's pull over. Let's go home. Let's park. Let's get a coffee. Let's do something, Get off the highway when you need to.
Doc, when you say that, I'm reminded of asking ourselves in the midst of negative thinking, asking ourselves to stop and say, does what I just was thinking about, does it serve me? If the answer is no, in that moment, I can make a choice to change that thinking. Simply, that doesn't mean it's easy. Simple doesn't mean easy. But if I'm in the midst of that negative thinking and can be positive, change that to a positive thought, even like 180 from whatever it was I was negatively thinking about, all of a sudden, that pattern, that new synapses are firing to say, oh no, we can do this differently, right? I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, absolutely. It just allows us to reinvest our energy into the things that are important to us. Something I talk a lot about, and I talked a lot about on Baggage Drop, which is one of mine's podcasts, is values. And Mandy's heard me talk about values ad nauseum. But I love talking about what's really important to you and what your why power is. And I think, Dr. Yeager, to your point, is we can really take that energy that we're ruminating with and be able to invest it in the places that are important to us, the places that are serving us, that are driving us forward. Speaking of Wondermind, something that I think is so powerful, and Dr. Yeager and I are both advisors for Wondermind, is that it's this place that is a mental fitness ecosystem, and it's this place where we can build habits, skills, tools to practice mental wellness in a regular way. And so, Selena and Mandy, I would love for you to talk a little bit about what prompted this. And then for the whole panel, I would love to hear from you guys, what are some of the things that you do or recommend to help practice mental wellness on a consistent basis?
I'll let my mom answer it, but it honestly stemmed from a conversation that we both had with each other, and it was about our journeys, and we ended up relating a lot to each other, and it was a turning point. And I think it was more like, how can we do that for other people? And then, you can explain how it became what it became, but it just stemmed from us really wanting to help other, mom and daughters to have like real open, honest conversations that turned into this, so.
When we were exploring new avenues of how we could continue the mother-daughter component and really just trying to create like family support amongst the conversations that you can do it together as a family was really the message behind that. We realized that there's not one place that you can go to help you kind of explore whatever you're feeling. So what we did is we decided, since we're not doctors, we are our audience, we are our consumer. And so what we wanted to do was build this world with several different pillars, from content, film, TV, podcasts, product, and by the request of the audience that is avid readers of Wondermind, we will be launching an app coming really soon, and it's gonna change the game on how we execute and how people actually can practice their mental fitness without like feeling like they're putting the time, because that's like, in 2023 when they did this study, it was like collective trauma that we all experienced, and the top 3 reasons why people don't do therapy is they don't have the time, they don't have the insurance, or they don't believe it works. So let's gamify it and see if you can play that game. And so we're gonna launch that, but we wanted a world where you could go on a site. We launch about 46 articles a month on our content hub that all is broken down by different feelings. So whether you're just having a bad day or you're having feelings you don't understand, we don't diagnose you, because